What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412 with another previewing the opponent. It is Ravens week. Steelers Ravens, always an enticing matchup, one of the better rivalries, if not the best rivalry in football. I know a lot of people talk about Packers Bears. That one hasn't necessarily been as exciting as of late. Steelers Ravens, despite where the teams are, it's always competitive, it's always fun. And it's always left on the field. I think that there's a mutual hatred for 60 minutes, but there's a mutual respect at all times, and everything kind of stays between the whistle. I don't know if you can say that about the other teams in the AFC North, but I will leave it at that. The Ravens coming into this game 3-1, wins over the Texans, Bengals, and Browns. Lost at home to the Colts. Unfortunate or fortunate pass interference, depending on how you look at it. Really, the difference between the Ravens being 3-1 and 4-0. First year for Lamar Jackson in a Todd Monken offense run there. Very different from things the Ravens offense have done in the past. There's been a lot of talk about them finding more explosive plays in the passing game. That needs to be something that they've worked on. I don't think that the down-to-down consistency has necessarily been there in the run game as well. And I know that they have a ton of injuries and everything like that, but the Ravens always seem to be able to find a way to run the football regardless of who it is. Lamar's still doing his thing, out of structure when things break down, his ability to use his legs and extend plays and, run the football. But I think that there's been a little bit of less designed runs. That's probably, an emphasis that they've made. They want him to be more of a passer and protect himself. Although, the times he's gotten hurt haven't been as a runner. It's been within the pocket. So, but just when you look at percentages, longevity of the position, I can understand why they would want that to be the case. Really good numbers so far for the team through the year, so far in the year. Other than 14th in offense, but they are 26th passing yards, 4th in rushing yards. But again, the down-to-down consistency hasn't necessarily been there. 12th in points, 5th and third down percentage. That's what I was talking about when I was circling back there, saying really good. The third down percentage is why this offense has been able to do what they've been able to do through 4 weeks here. Is they're moving the sticks. They're staying ahead of things, staying on schedule, and being able to move the football. Something I wish we were seeing in Pittsburgh right now. But in this Todd Monken offense, I think it's very different for Lamar. Going back to some of Todd Monken's college offenses, it's been a good bit of air raid stuff. Obviously, he was at Georgia prior to coming to the Baltimore Ravens. I like the hire for sure. I was curious as to how it would fit. I know it's going to take some time. I think it's been a little bit up and down this year, but I think that we're starting to see Lamar get back to what he was in 2018 as a passer. And again, he still has the ability to use his legs when necessary. I just don't think that this offense requires him to do it as much as, a Greg Roman's offense was in past years. So I think that that's good in terms of keeping him healthy for the longevity of him. Should be getting a couple weapons back this week in Odell Beckham Jr. and Rashad Bateman to pair with Zay Flowers, who I'm a huge fan of. And of course, Mark Andrews is always there. And the offensive line maybe getting Ronnie Stanley back while losing Morgan Moses on the other side. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how those guys hold up against the Steelers pass rush. Of TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, who is coming into this game dealing with a little bit of a groin thing. He promised he's going to be able to go in this one. But I think that you look behind him as well. Marcus Golden, Nick Herbig, certainly no slouches. I think the Steelers are in much better position this year to deal with an injury at the edge position than in, even just going back to last year. TJ goes down, it's Malik Reed, it's Jameer Jones. This year they have more formidable options should Alex Highsmith not be able to go. But man, I'm looking at those eligibles for the Ravens, and I'm thinking about how the Steelers are going to match up with those guys. Patrick Peterson, Levi Wallace, much scrutinized this year for their play. And I get it. I think, honestly, for me, Levi Wallace has been worse in terms of his run support than he has against the pass. I think for the most part, he's playing within the structure of this defense and pass, and it's a lot of catch and tackle, giving a lot of space to wide receivers, letting them be like they're willing to let the offense nickel and dime you because they feel like their pass rush is going to get home eventually. They're going to create turnovers. But when that doesn't happen, you're putting your cornerbacks in a really bad spot. I know people have been clamoring for more Joey Porter Jr. I get it. I'm certainly one of those people. It's an interesting thing, though, right? Because if the Steelers are going to be running a lot of zone because of, their two current outside starting corners just being more comfortable running in zone, and that being what the defense is catered to do, Joey Porter Jr. is obviously, much more of a man corner. He wants to get his hands on you at the line of scrimmage. He wants to press. It's an interesting fit. So I'm curious as to how they do that. Are they going to play, say, when Joey Porter Jr. eventually does take over on the outside of one of those spots? Are they going to be running like man on one side, zone on the other? I think it's an interesting conundrum that the Steelers defense is in terms of getting Joey Porter Jr. on the field more. But just from a talent perspective, I do think it needs to happen. I do think Desmond King, we see a lot more of him in this game. Now listed as a and or co-starter along with Shannon Sullivan in the slot. But I think Desmond King is certainly the type of slot corner that the Steelers want, especially in this matchup. He can do a lot of things that Mike Hilton would do from the nickel. Really good tackler, really good in run support, offers inside-outside versatility. He can cover. So I think it's going to be an interesting dynamic on Sunday to see how he gets on the field. Just 13 special team snaps so far for the team. Hasn't played a snap on defense. I think that changes on Sunday. So when you look at the Ravens offense going up against the Steelers defense, the one thing that I've kind of started to talk about, obviously, the Steelers secondary versus those wide receivers that, can give you a ton of problems, in my opinion. Just they're so different. Zay Flowers, OBJ, Rashad Bateman, they all bring something different to the table. But Mark Andrews is really the guy. I think that, Steelers fans, we, as a collective, certainly not me, because I was always a fan of his game, Terrell Edmunds. I think that this is definitely a game where you're going to notice his absence. A lot of people, not necessarily the biggest fans of his game, and I get it, didn't really bring the splash, wasn't creating a bunch of turnovers, but he was so consistent. And I think over the years, we saw less and less times where, if you guys remember, we had a period where tight ends were just destroying the Steelers. And I think Terrell Edmunds' emergence in terms of coverage on that position is why it wasn't such a big conversation for us as of late. Mark Andrews, one of the better tight ends in the league. I'm curious as to how they match up with him. Is it going to be a lot of Keanu Neal? Is it going to be Quan Alexander, Cole Holcomb? Is it going to be DeMonte KZ? What do they do here? In my opinion, I think Keanu Neal is probably going to see the most of him. It all depends on if they're able to stop the run, though. If they're able to put their foot in the ground and stop this run early, then I think that you can maybe, high-low. Give a double team, a safety over top on Mark Andrews, in the form of DeMonte KZ, maybe a little bit of Minkah Fitzpatrick. But, I think that he's got to have other assignments in this one. I want to see him move around more than he has to this point. So it's going to be interesting to see all the credit in the world to Lamar Jackson. And I'm a huge fan of his game. I really like Zay Flowers. I like what they're doing on the offensive side of the football for the Ravens. I think they're heading in the right direction. Like I said, it's been a little bit up and down in Todd Monken's offense so far, but I just think it's, getting accustomed to that switch. Steelers offense versus Ravens defense, getting Marlon Humphrey back, getting Marcus Williams back. They're a little thin on the edge right now. No Oweh. Jadeveon Clowney's been pretty solid for them. He's honestly been better as a pass rusher this year than, man, I maybe going back to his Texans days. Like he's always been really good in run support, but I think as a pass rusher, you're always looking. He hasn't lived up to that number one billing as a pass rusher. But this year he's actually been pretty solid. So I'm interested to see what they do in this one. McDonald's defense, they do a lot of the same things. I think you always got to be aware Kyle Hamilton, be aware of where he's at, lines up in a lot of different spots for them, had 3 sacks against Indianapolis. He'll play around the line of scrimmage a lot. He's played nickel for them quite a bit just due to injuries. Obviously, no Marlon Humphrey. They've lined him up outside, playing deep safety in the absence of Marcus Williams, who will be back this week. So, they are willing to move him around. I think you always got to be aware of where he is. That linebacker duo with Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith. Obviously, Mike Tomlin was kind of gushing over that duo. Baltimore, one of the 2 teams in the NFL that does prioritize off-ball linebacker play for sure. You look at from Ray Lewis to CJ Mosley to what they have now, they're always prioritizing that spot. So I think you got to be aware of those 2 guys on the field as well. I think the Steelers got to be able to run the football in this one. Broderick Jones making his first start. Nate Herbig going to start a second straight game in place of James Daniels. And Kenny Pickett not being at 100%, I wouldn't imagine. I mean, there's no way that he is. He's good enough to go, it looks like. We'll see if he has any type of, sleeve. I can't imagine he's going to want to wear a brace. He didn't want to in college. But either way, I think the Steelers got to find a way to run the football in this one. Broderick and Nate Herbig much better in terms of run blockers as opposed to pass protection. Kenny Pickett and just where he is right now, health and also just the way that he's played. I don't think you want him dropping back, 35 plus times as he's had to do multiple times this year. Game script hopefully can stay within at least their favor I'm not even saying well, obviously I want them to get ahead, but just where you have the option to run the football and it's not, you're 3 scores down basically before you blink and you got to throw. Hopefully they're able to establish a run game, take control of the clock, and kind of, shorten this game, take the air out of the football, play it like a road game, even though you're going to be at home. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, I'd like to see a heavy dose of those guys in this one. You don't have Pat Freiermuth in this one, so, you down another eligible. No Deontay Johnson already. Now no Pat Freiermuth. Injured Kenny Pickett. Like this tells me the Steelers need to be able to run the football in this one if they want any shot of winning this. Now, I look at the Ravens defense. They've been very good. You might not be able to name a ton of personnel along that defensive line, but total yards, third, passing yards, third, rushing yards, seventh, points, third. The one spot where teams have been able to get them in their middle of the pack, 18th on third down percentage allowed. So hopefully the Steelers are able to extend some drives. But even looking at those numbers, they're really thin on the edge right now, like I mentioned. And they don't have, a Calais Campbell in the middle of their defensive line anymore. All respect to Travis Jones, Justin Madubuike. They brought Michael Pierce back, but I think you're going to be able to run the football. If you're going to be able to do anything against this Ravens defense this week, I think it's going to be running the football. I don't, I obviously I like George Pickens against pretty much anybody. I think Calvin Austin offers a very unique skill set that not a lot of corners can cover. But I think if the Steelers are going to have success in this one, it's going to have to be on the ground. So I'm really curious as to how the Steelers offense matches up against this Ravens defense. I think they got to start fast. If they win the coin toss, please defer the football, though. Like, I don't know what's going on right now with the Steelers wanting the football early when they win coin tosses. It's very un-Steelers-like as opposed to most years, but for whatever reason, they've switched it up this year. So, should be a good one. AFC North football at Acrisure Stadium. Steelers-Ravens, it's always tight. It's always fun. I will be there. And drop your predictions down below. I've maintained 26-21 Ravens. I do think the Steelers offense shows some signs of life this week after Najee Harris kind of wanted to deflect blame from the coaches and put blame on the players. I can agree with some of the stuff he said. I just think that it's much more layered than the way that he put it. Even if it's on the players to execute, that goes back to coaching, in my opinion, for not having them in the position, not coaching them well enough to be able to execute. So either way, in my opinion, there's blame that falls on the coaching staff for sure. But yeah, certainly the players could be executing better than they are. I think they do that on Sunday to a degree. I just don't think it's enough, with where they are right now, with where the Ravens are right now. So I got Ravens 26-21. You guys can let me know in the comments how you're feeling about this one. While you're here, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We appreciate you guys doing that for us. And go watch another video. Go check out another video that we posted. Go check out the Steelers show for this week. If you're a Penguins or Pirates fan, we put out podcasts about those teams as well throughout the week. So go check that out. Don't miss any of the content. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back next time. Until then, for Acrisure Smith, this is Around the 412, and we'll see you.